This is one fat boy, and here are my NBA game predictions for March 23rd. Tonight there's 11 games. We'll go over the spreads and over-unders for each of them. For the Hawks at the Pistons. So overall, for the spread for this game, I just lean towards Detroit being within 5.5 as they've been keeping their games closer than Hawks playing last night. Even though on paper, Hawks are the better team. They should win this. But I think Detroit will be able to keep it close. And also playing at home, they'll have a slight advantage there, and also Atlanta has to travel to them overnight. So hence why I think Detroit will have a slight advantage, just keeping the game close. But overall, spread-wise, this is probably a game I'd rather not bet on spread-wise, because I'd probably lean towards Detroit more 8.5 or Atlanta winning barely, but I can also see Atlanta blowing them out, as Atlanta needs to keep their spot in the playoffs and stay in the top 8, or at least get into the top 8. But I'll be taking the under because Detroit, not the greatest offensive team in the world, and then Atlanta playing last night might be a little tired, shot might be a little flat. I don't see them scoring 130. I see them maybe 115 more in that area. So hence I lean towards an under for this game. For Kings at the Pacers, so I expect a high-scoring game, as both these teams can put up a lot of points. So hence I'll be leaning towards an over 236, as I'd be very surprised if either of these teams start playing lockdown defense. It's if it's unders, it means they're breaking shots all games. So hence I'd just lean towards an over. And then spread-wise, I just lean towards Sacramento plus 5.5, as they've also have been keeping their games close. And then Indiana, they've been kind of random. They've been having blowouts where they blow out a team, or they get blown out, or it stays relatively close. So they're in all three outcomes for score-wise. So hence I just lean towards an underdog, because if I were to choose a team to win, I'd probably lean towards the Pacers. But I think the Kings can keep it close and maybe come out with a win. But I think just betting an underdog, maybe just plus a few more points. But current spread is plus 5.5, so hence why I just lean towards the underdog, at least keeping it close. For the Knicks at Charlotte, with Charlotte minus 6.5. So currently Charlotte is on a 5-game winning streak, and I'm sure they'd like to sneak up to that 8th seed. But certainly they are in the 9th. But of course they gotta win games to just stay in the playoff spot. And the Knicks, they're kind of out of it. So these last 10 games are just more for honor for them, if they have any left. But I think Charlotte should be able to win. As long as they get their shot going. If they're winning, it's not on the defensive end. It's going to be on the offensive end. So hence why I lean towards over 226. Because Charlotte's defense is nothing to write home about, that's for sure. And yeah, as long as they get going from 3, get multiple players involved, pass the ball around, make their open threes, Charlotte should win this game. And the Knicks, they have been scoring better, so another reason why to lean towards an over 226. But Charlotte should be able to take care of the Knicks. Knicks also played last night too, so that's a disadvantage for them. So this is Charlotte's game to win. For the Nets at Memphis, I'm going to go with Brooklyn minus 3. So having Kyrie and Durant, that should be enough to beat the Grizzlies. Grizzlies are kind of playing average ball right now, and I think the Nets, I'm sure they'd like to get out of the playoffs, but at least want to stay in the 7-8 seed. So I would expect Brooklyn to come out and just win this game, have energy to these are must-win games, their last 10 or a few more games. These are must-win for them, as they got to stay in that 7-8 seed. And then especially with Kyrie being there, that's a bonus. You have your part-time player there, so he needs to show up, and I expect him to, as he has been consistently all year. So I do expect Brooklyn to win and cover a minus 3 spread. And I will be leaning towards an under, even though Memphis and Brooklyn games are higher scoring. I think Brooklyn will be setting up for their playoff kind of play style, so I wouldn't be surprised if they are playing more lockdown defense. So hence why I lean towards under 235.5. I'd probably lean towards an over 228, but I think under 235 to 40 is reasonable, as I think there will be a surprising amount of defense in this game. For Golden State at Miami, I'm going to lean towards Miami minus 6.5. So both these teams came off kind of rough losses. Warriors lost to the Magic last night, and then Miami lost to the Sixers without Harden and Embiid. So one of these teams will redeem themselves as the others will just lose another game. But I will lean towards Miami minus 6.5 as the Warriors without Curry. I thought their offense would have been fine without Curry, especially playing against the Magic, but I guess he's the integral part, and if he's not there, like, you either need Poole, Wiggins, or Thompson to step up, but they're not natural ball handlers as Curry is, so Golden State's offense is going to struggle, and Miami does play very good defense. Like, as long as they can hide Hero, like, their defense is solid. So it's going to be one defensively this game, as Warriors defense, it's still fine. You have Draymond. Like, their defense is going to be fine, just their offense is going to struggle. So hence I'll be leaning towards under 213.5, as I don't expect either of these teams to have like multiple players just like popping off, making all their shots. So I'd lean towards an under 213.5. For Utah at Boston, lean towards Boston minus 5.5. Boston is slowly becoming the quote unquote from some sports websites the Eastern Conference favorite and possible championship favorite, which kind of a bit of a stretch, but I will say they have been playing better and won't be surprised seeing them in the finals. So they have been playing better ball. So I've been leaning towards Boston minus 5.5 as their defense, that's what's been winning them. And they have two people to defend Mitchell in Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. So that's should be enough to really slow him down, because if you can like make Mitchell work for his shot, keep him off the line, I think the Jazz's offense will struggle. And the Celtics, they play slower pace of basketball. So hence, while just lean towards unders for them, and plus with their defense being so good, I think it's pretty smart to take an under, especially a 220 under for the Celtics game. And then Boston should be able to handle Utah. As Utah, they are playing better, but kind of more inconsistent. Boston's been way more consistent ever since the All-Star break. For the Suns at the Timberwolves, so even with the Suns missing players, I'm going to be honest, I didn't check who was missing for the Suns because it doesn't matter who's playing for them. They figure out to win. They just input their players. Like, they beat the Kings with basically their third string and a mix of their second string in there. And the way the Suns play, especially defensive and offensively, like, they just figure it out. Like, they're still playing like 10 guys even with all the people out. So just how the Suns system works, I think they should be able to take down the Timberwolves, even though most of the Suns games with the Timberwolves this year has been close. As long as the Suns can just like play a slower pace of basketball, force like Minnesota to play like half court defense, not just fast breaks. That's if this turns into a fast paced game, then obviously, like, if you think it's gonna be fast paced, take the Timberwolves plus 1.5 and an over. But I think the Suns should be smart and play a slower pace of basketball, and they'll figure it out. It's like that's the way that they're going to win this. So I think they're going to figure it out. So I'm leaning towards Phoenix minus 1.5 and an under 235.5. For the Magic at the Thunder, so Magic played last night and won, and Thunder didn't. But overall, spread-wise, this probably wouldn't be a game I would take a spread or a winner for. But if I had to, I'd lean towards the Thunder plus 2, because I think this is probably going to be those scrappier games where every basket is going to be hard to come by. Like, it should be open shots, but it's like there's a reason why these teams like have the amount of wins they do, like low 20s. It's because they're not knocking out those open shots. Young players, there's a lot of mistakes, so it's going to be a younger, like a lot of mistakes in this game, but I just lean towards Thunder plus 2. Like, they might be able to sneak a win just through heart and hustle, but that's how the Magic won last night against Warriors, through heart and hustle. So, what if I had to lean one way? I'd lean towards the Thunder. We'll be leaning towards an under 219.5, as the Magic's offense has not been great. I believe they did not score over 100 2 games in a row, and the Thunder's offense, not the greatest either. So, hence why I'd lean towards under 219.5. I wouldn't be surprised if you want to take it all the way to 212.5, but current spread is at 219.5. I really don't expect a great offensive performance from either of these teams. For Houston at the Mavericks, I'm going to have Dallas minus 9.5. So I think Dallas is turning on playoff mode as they've been winning against good teams and taking care of the bad teams too. So like they beat the Timberwolves in their last game. That's a team fighting like to get into the 6th seed, and Mavericks defended their 6th seed spot. So I expect the Mavericks to continue to do that against the Rockets, as the Rockets, they're just playing, for honor right now, if they have any, while the Mavericks, they are playing, so they're not in the play-ins. So hands on lean towards Dallas winning, and they should be able, like, who on Houston is going to guard Luka? Like, no one. No one can really guard him, so Luka will probably just backpack this game, take down the Rockets by himself pretty much. I'll be leaning towards under 225.5. I think the Mavericks defense will really affect the Houston Rockets, as the wing defense, like Houston, they get their points from the wings. Mavericks have good defenders on the wings, so expect Houston to struggle offensively. The Mavericks are not like a 125 point like scoring type of team. Like they're more gonna be like that 112 to 118 against a bad defense. So hence I'll be leaning towards an under 225.5. For the Sixers at the Lakers, be leaning towards Philadelphia minus 7.5. So as long as Embiid and Harden are playing, they should be able to beat the Lakers. Like LeBron can only backpack so hard. Like LeBron would have to score at least 40 for the Lakers to be in the game, let alone win. While Philadelphia, they just need like Embiid and Harden just play like average games and just a role player to step up, and that should be able more than enough to beat the Lakers. And also just playing for 4 quarters. I mean, the Lakers only have 3 tops, so you just gotta play all 4. Which I expect Philadelphia to do that. Cover 7.5 point spread. And as long as their defense is solid, like that should give them another boost. So hence why I'm leaning towards under 229.5, as both teams play a slower pace. They're not playing up and down. It's just like weaker defense by the Lakers. Like when the Sixers knock down their open shots, that should be more than enough to beat the Lakers, because we saw in the last game, like Sixers scored like 37 one quarter, but they only scored like 91 for the game, or it's like 88 points for the whole game. So the Sixers can score a lot, but they do hit those slumps. They just gotta not hit those against the Lakers, like for 3 quarters. Like they just gotta hit their open threes, just play solid defense, and that should be more than enough to beat the Lakers. For the Spurs at Portland, we're going with San Antonio minus 7.5. So the Spurs are right on the outside of the play-ins, and so they have something they're playing for. Portland, technically they are, but they don't have the personnel to win games like consistently at an NBA level. While the Spurs should be able to handle Portland no problem. Like they're better offensively, they got more consistent pieces, and defensively, Spurs aren't the greatest. They give a lot of points, so that's what I'm taking over in this game. But I think the Spurs should be able to win this without a problem. They have a purpose to be playing. They should be like running, gunning, first, second, third quarter, fourth quarter, like whole game. First half, second half, like I expect a lot of energy from the Spurs. I expect them to score a lot, hence why I'm taking over 233.5. Like up and down from both teams. Like Spurs, I wouldn't be surprised if they have over 128 points. Kind of on a but like over 125, 130, like somewhere in that range over that. And so that means Portland just needs to get like 105 points, which I think is reasonable by Portland, even though they have multiple games where they're under 100 after the All-Star break. But also they have multiple games over 120. But I think Portland will be like somewhere in the middle. So hence why I'm leaning towards over 233.5. Thank you for watching. As always, have fun watching sports, bet responsibly, and most importantly, just have fun watching basketball. And thank you for watching.